Hello and welcome to this episode of Point Counterpoint. We are here to discuss a subject which is slightly grim, even more sensitive, something that many of us encounter on a day-to-day basis. It is not just about crime and punishment, it's also about justice and lack of it. The subject at hand is provocative but necessary. We are looking into and addressing one question, and that is the police in Goa only for the powerful? There are no easy answers to this, but the trends that have emerged over the last few years in Goa seem to point that that is indeed the case. We will get into this whole gamut of complexities that surround this particular topic, and the subject at hand needs a lot of deep diving. We are lucky and really honored to have a very established panel of stakeholders and experts and people who've indeed been there, done that, seen it all in their various capacities as activists, lawyers, journalists, police officers, and all of them are on this panel who have not only experienced it all, but probably have also felt challenged in their work because of this, and deep down within share the same frustrations that many of us do as we look at a changing Goa with all its pitfalls and problems. I welcome BOSCO George, who needs no introduction in Goa. He retired as the DIG of police as an IPS officer, but BOSCO has been part of the system for a very long time, having served in virtually every sensitive position that you can talk of, from the district to the crime to FRRO and everything else. But BOSCO has risen up the ranks and is one of the proud sons of Goa. Next to him is a colleague and friend, SHWETA BAJAJ, who's a very senior journalist who's worked in national and international networks. She's a documentary filmmaker, and if I may also state that she has worked very closely and sensitively in this Marian Borgo case, which has shaken Goa to a large extent, which of course we will touch upon that case briefly. But I'll admit, and I'll certainly confess, that that probably was one of the triggers which led to us, coming to this table and saying that, look, let us look at all such cases, and we really need to address this question of the police being for the powerful a little more seriously. CYRIL Fernandes is a Chicali-based human rights activist, but though he's based there, but he's worked throughout the state in his various capacities, looked at various cases and fights, and is a soldier for human rights in Goa. And specifically, he has been a long-time crusader fighting for justice for that little school girl in Vasco who was raped exactly 10 years ago, and we still haven't found the rapist. And he has, of course, crusaded on that for a long time. So thank you, CYRIL, for making time. And last is again another friend, very solid professional, Ryan Menezes, senior advocate, who has, of course, worked on many such cases, needless to say, knows the law inside out, and would throw a lot of professional insights into the subject at hand. I will actually start with Ryan. Ryan, if you can just respond to the overall premise of what I've said so far and lay the ground for many of the points that I have essentially covered, addressing the basic question of why does the police lean towards the powerful, if that is indeed the case?
There is, Sujay, a perception that the police today exist only for the powerful. It may be difficult to state that as an absolute proposition of fact, but the fact does remain. It comes across to us very often that in certain cases they decline to act. In certain cases they rush to act. There are a number of reasons for this. One of them perhaps is the interference in their working from above them. The action or inaction of the police could be because there is pressure from above them to act or not to act. The other reasons that could be there for this is, in a given case, obviously the dishonesty of the officer concerned. I mean, he may be offered an incentive to act or not to act. So eventually that gives us the illusion or that he's acting only for the powerful. What I'm trying to say over here is it is sometimes it relates to power. It is in other times that it may relate to money. But of course, beyond this, there would be instances where the police officials have acted fairly. Perhaps some systemic changes are required, and in my opinion, starting where we have to start is to insulate the police from the political structure that exists above them. The second place we have to go is to make them aware of what the law mandates. On registrations of FIRs, the Supreme Court is quite clear that if a complaint clearly discloses an FIR, they have to register it. They cannot embark upon preliminary inquiries except in certain exceptional cases. Generally, if the cognizable offence is disclosed, they have to register it. If they are made aware of this and that they, by not registering an FIR, when a cognizable offence is disclosed, and that they would be in contempt of the Supreme Court judgment, perhaps it might evoke a different response. There are other matters like uploading of FIRs, like the Arnesh Kumar judgment on when they can arrest and when they cannot. Perhaps there is the need also to make them aware of all these directions of the Supreme Court that pretty much lay out clearly for them on how they are supposed to act when seized of criminal cases that they have to investigate.
I'll get a quick response from BOSCO and then the others on this.
At the outset, let me say I don't represent the police, so I can't speak on behalf of the police. But as a police officer who has served with Goa Police, I will say yes. I agree with Ryan. We have aberrations in our system, in our policing. But then, by and large, being a small state, we seem to be accountable for everything. The police. You have RTI, you have the police complaint authority, you have the court, you have the press, name it. And most of the time we are trying to defend ourselves only in this. And there can be some this thing as far as Supreme Court orders and judgments are concerned. By and large, I think no officer would want to overlook these things and be held in contempt for it. But there can be. And officers do, even at our level, we just try to this thing. If it is, and maybe, we take it at a very high level that these things are being complied with. There is possibility it may not be compliant, but I think if it is ever brought to any senior officer's notice, he too would never want to this thing. He can take the person to task. As compared to any other government department, police department is the only department where a person can be suspended on a violation, which I have done it. So our accountability as compared to any other government department is immediate. As far there is no two ways about it. But again, these days, even at the superior officers level, the challenges are arising because of the smallness of the state. And what he says, that it's quite true. I think 41 is being, by and large, the arrest. Yeah, it being compiled as because no one wants, because these are, these are the lines that red lines that we cannot cross. But yeah, we sometimes do have some jokers who may try to be over enthusiastic in trying to do this. But the experienced officers will never want to get into such a thing. That's what I will say for the
I'll just stick with you for a little longer on this. See, let's also kind of address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is politics and politicians. While one can easily say that every state is inflicted with this political virus, and the lines between the executive, the politician and the police force, they've blurred completely. which is why one sees that, if a particular government comes into power, you can from the back of your hand figure out what is going to be the list of transfers that are going to happen. Right from the PI level to the sub-inspector level to, in fact, it is much more at that level than at the level of SPs and DIGs. Okay. There is also, and let us be direct about it, the thing is that, of course, people at the SP level, the DIG and IG level, mainly IPS officers, of course, they come from outside, they come, as a central police force officer. But the problem actually lies below that. Okay. And you've seen both sides as well in your career. So the point here is that don't you think the absolute politicization, I won't even say some politicization, the absolute politicization of the force is actually something that is a ribbon which ties this whole package of mess.
Sujay, through, like when I joined in 87, the transfers of officers of police stations was with the IG. Nobody else.
This was in 87?
87 when I joined. My batchmate on probation was given a posting at Goa Police Station. He says, you are going to do it. I mean, the IG himself knew, Goa, small state, we had hardly...
And there was one IG.
One IG, and hardly any police stations were there. So it was not a big thing for the IG to know which officer is capable, which officer is this. Now, that from that status, we have come to an extent where things have changed so drastically that till such time, as I have said before, it is said that the superintendence of the police lies, as long as it is written, lies with the executive. These things are bound to happen. Someone is going to exploit the situation. Right. And take it. You have to change that. Then you can ask the police, you are accountable, now you keep doing it.
Correct.
Otherwise, please address this at a level where it needs to be addressed. Definitely not the police.
SHWETA, coming to you, where do you think the problem really lies? Is a mix of all this? Is it do with politicization of the police? Or there's money power involved, or do you feel that there are a lot of powerful entities who control the government who are not really politicians, who are controlling it from outside? Or now there is a new trend that has now come which completely reverses what I just said. The Delhi walas are coming in and say, look, we've got the IPS officers under our control, we don't need to control anybody else, they'll do the work for us. And this is a normal conversation that happens.
Well, I think Goa's policing troubles are sort of deep. Number one is, of course, there is money. And yes, the politicians are probably not even controlling the policemen. They are just the middlemen to do that. So you will never come to know who the orders are coming from, right? So that's one barrier that lasts. So I'm not sure anymore if politics is really running Goa or, for that matter, this nation. Secondly, like BOSCO just said, Goa is a small state, but in the garb of being a small state, a lot of things happened here. And now a greater policing needs. That's why we are seeing Hyderabad police come here and do arrests. That is second biggest challenge. The police force has to be trained with the fact that no, it's no more about a small state. Because it was a small state, a lot of people came in here and it became a hub of crime, so to say. There were people who would do crimes in other state and they would find shelter in Goa. And this trend continues. There was a story recently where two boys in Kochi who ran rampant with crime there then came to Goa and were arrested.
Right.
But they were doing crime here and they were not given a large amount of time in the jail anyway. So these kind of cases need to go down. Number three, the coastal belt needs to be looked at very, very carefully. Yes, there is tourism, and that's why a lot of free hand is given. But there is no doubt that when you have a large number of people come into the state, there is a lot of alcohol consumption, there is a large amount of drug consumption, things can go out of hand. Why we did not have to worry about it so much? Because such a large influx was happening. In 2014, we didn't even have enough flights into Goa.
Right.
But now, with the youngest population in the country, in the world that India has, with everyone coming here, the trouble then just mounts. So the number of police officers also needs to go higher up. I keep seeing now in the coastal belt, there's a lot of people from the narcotics department, and they go into these nightclubs and they're trying to figure out what's happening. But the training remains nil. I've bumped into some of them and had funny conversations, and I understand that there is not much training into doing the job they've been put into. So I think that the three-pronged problem. There's a power struggle,
Issue,
of course,
yes.
and like you said, power comes with money. It's balanced. Secondly, it's no more a small state. In the garb of small state, we probably have international crime syndicates happening in this state. And thirdly, that training of police officers is not of the standards that the state needs.
So, Cyril,
Could I just
yeah, sure.
add to
Yeah,
what
Yes,
you
come,
said?
Cyril, yeah,
yes.
sure.
It's not only the training that's lacking, it's also the use of technology and the infrastructure.
Right, right.
We are still sending forensic materials
Yes.
to Hyderabad. We've had a lab, but that lab has not been properly equipped, I think, for more than a decade. So that infrastructure, that that greater use of technology,
Right.
things like surveillance cameras all over the city. I believe the person who committed the theft in the Panjim court
Yes.
earlier this month
right.
was tracked with the traffic CCTV cameras. Now imagine if we had CCTVs to cover the entire city. Things like that will make a difference. We need to step up.
Yeah, CCTVs have been
The use of
ostensibly bought but
technology.
not implemented. So, yeah.
We need to step up the use of technology for surveillance, for investigation, for forensic examination. All this needs to be within the state. If we are dependent on laboratories elsewhere, obviously it delays the investigation.
Sure. Cyril, you've been patiently hearing all of us. We'd like your point of view, but I think what we also need to kind of get back to the basic premise that all of this is fine. We understand what the problems are. We are elaborating them rightly so. But somehow the kind of the wheels of justice seem to run according to the pace set by the powerful, and this is kind of being talked about again and again. How does this, supposed manipulation happen? Where if you have some element of power or access to it, then the law will bend towards you. That is something which is being increasingly felt all over Goa. I will give you one interesting example. There was this British, like a elderly drug dealer who was there for a very, very long time, and Shweta, you know this case very well, where he was recently kind of caught and arrested, and he turned around and said, look, if I have been paying your cop for such a long time, this was not, it was not part of the deal to arrest me because I've already paid for it. He literally raised a consumer complaint saying that I've paid for my services, why am I getting arrested? And he was actually called to identify the cops who took money from him. And the cops actually shaved off their mustaches and half their heads to avoid identification. So I'm saying, I'm narrating this incident because it completely sums up visually where the problem lies. Over to you.
So actually, Sujay, I've heard the other speakers also, and each of them has looked at the police issues at a micro level.
Yes.
Okay. I, with 40 years of activism in my lifetime of 57 years,
Sure.
I look in a different manner.
Right.
If I look at the macro level of policing
Right.
in India,
Yes.
we'll come to Goa later.
Right.
See, police system in India is a legacy of the British, and that was formed itself to keep the voices suppressed and the powerful running, for the government to do its job and the powerful industry to do its job, and nobody was supposed to question it. We have had independence, and after that nothing has changed. The police continues to support the government and the industry. The industry is itself the criminals, biggest criminals. Don't talk of the small minor criminal. The industry itself is a big criminal in different manners and in different fields. And that's where they need the police to protect their crimes. The government needs the police to protect their crime. So this police will never work for a common man. This is historically, if you see, that is the history of Indian police. And the same applies to Goa. Nothing changes in Goa. Goa is a state by default.
Right.
And therefore the police also is by default. Because it has to be there, it is there. I'll read you all one quote and you can tell me who must have said it. Okay, in Goa. Starts in Konkani. Rajkarni, that's political. Rajkarni, police, criminal nexus, हांची पाळामुळा, the roots. बरीच खोल गेल्ली आहा, the roots have gone very deep. political, police and the criminal. Now who could have said it in the context of Goa? You guess and tell me.
You tell me.
Huh?
You tell me.
Mr. Manohar Parrikar
I thought as
as
much.
Chief Minister of Goa in the Assembly when presenting the 13-14 budget. Now when the Chief Minister of Goa admits, then I have nothing more to say if the police nexus is there or not. That is there every day. You open Herald and you find that. So, but you can't expect anything more than that, because the industry or the criminals control the government controls the police, and government and the industry has to survive. So they will use the police against whoever makes noise. It's a free for all in Goa and nobody can stop it.
Okay, now I'll get into
Show is
a
over.
little more specifics. Yeah, you're right, Cyril. See, the issue is that, okay, now this is a question I'll start with Ryan and then Bosco, and again we'll do the same order, crisscross. See, Ryan, let's look into it purely from the point of law. Okay. Now once a complaint is filed in a police station, there are certain procedures that a police person has to do. Okay. We know of so many cases where this has not been done. The most glaring ones which we see are actual human rights cases. For instance, in the Valpoi police station, you had a Hanumant Parab who was beaten up for protesting against mining trucks going. He has complained of being rampantly beaten up in the police, in the room of the PI, thrashed. There are so many complaints that he has filed. He's gone to the President's office, he's gone to the Prime Minister's office. There are directions that have come from there to the Chief Secretary asking them to look into it. Till now, his complaint has not been converted into an FIR. So there are numerous such cases. We recently had an issue of somebody from your fraternity getting brutally assaulted. Okay, we do not know where that case particularly lies. We had an incident where on the middle of the road near Porvory, a policeman returning from duty stopped a car at a traffic light and thrashed a journalist's nephew or son or whatever. Okay. Now, my point is, these are just stray incidents. I'm sure there'll be multiples of 20 happening like this, where cases are just not registered. And then, of course, recently, I'm mentioning the Marian Morgovic case. I'm asking you not to respond to it, but also I'm saying that also is an incident where there is a complaint lodged and no FIR filed. So, if you could respond to this generally as to what aspects of law are getting violated.
The law, that is section 154 of the Criminal Procedure Code, contemplates that when an information of a cognizable offence is given to the police station, it has to be reduced into writing, and that constitutes the registration of an FIR in the prescribed register, obviously. That it is a statutory obligation has been laid down very clearly in a number of judgments of the Supreme Court. The last being the Constitution Bench judgment in Lalita Kumari's case. I believe that was 2013. There are earlier judgments which go so far as to say that the failure to register the FIR constitutes dereliction of duty. Long and short is that if a cognizable offence is disclosed, they have to register an FIR. What the police do is either they water down the sections which are invoked and register it as a non-cognizable complaint, commonly called an NC. Or they simply write back to the complainant saying this is a civil dispute and we can't go into it. Now, there may be a civil dispute, but that does not necessarily exclude criminal liability.
Right.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court in the Ramesh Bajaj judgment has said this very clearly. The same set of facts may throw up civil liability and criminal liability. But invariably, the police use these sort of excuses to avoid the registration. Why? Number one, there could be pressure from above, don't prosecute this guy. Number two, they may already be have been inspired not to register it by the person against whom it is being filed. The third, of course, could be that every FIR registered means that they have to conduct an investigation, which means it's greater pressure on them. So, their discretions really come only after they have registered the FIR. But as far as registration of the FIR goes, it's mandatory if a cognizable offence is disclosed, and if they don't do it, technically they are acting contrary to judgments where this has been very clearly stated.
But when they do that, the lawyer who's on representing the complainant
Yes.
can very well go to court and point this out and get
The
relief.
lawyer has to first, actually the complainant has to first make a letter to the jurisdictional SP asking him to intervene and direct the PI to register the FIR.
Right.
If that is not done, then under 156(3) of the CrPC, the complainant can go to the judicial magistrate and ask for a direction to the PI to register the FIR. Obviously, the magistrate, when examining such an application, would look at only what the PI is expected to look at when registering the FIR, whether on a plain reading of the complaint, a cognizable offence is disclosed or not. Many people, unfortunately, don't take that route to the GMFC. Many people run to their local MLA who really has no statutory power, and who also, when he responds to their plea, is thinking of how it impacts him in the next election.
Next election, yes.
A magistrate, on the other hand, is much, in fact, is almost certain to give you justice if you've
If the facts are clear.
if
yes.
the facts are clear.
Right. Right.
I look at the judicial setup today as the last bastion of hope.
Right.
And there is a very efficacious remedy under 156(3). But for some reason, many people don't turn to it.
Right. Bosco, don't respond to him specifically, but I'm generally saying you
no,
can.
I
also.
will respond to all this.
Yeah.
He has given the answer.
Right.
My point is very clear.
Right.
If the officer doesn't take cognizance, there is a remedy. The remedy is the SP. Finally, okay,
Right.
he's something above the maybe above those petty politicians.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
how many? I've been a district SP. Nobody has ever come to me.
With in these kind of cases. Correct.
In such cases.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So that's where I'm saying that we are condemned it at the very first level, that the officer has not taken cognizance. What have you done? You have, as he rightly said, they run to the politician.
Right. Right.
Now, if you're going to take a shortcut, our guys at the police station will also take shortcuts in these things.
Right. Right.
Come to the SP, and if the SP doesn't take cognizance, then yes, then you can think. And then there is the court also. Nobody wants to take this line.
So the onus also lies on the public, right? Correct.
So let's, it's very clear. I'm not saying the guy sitting there at the police station is God Almighty, but then after there is a way of dealing with it. And the way of dealing it with going to the politician is the wrong procedure, which is not laid down at all. And there is one more, if Ryan has forgotten, the police complaint authority is also there, which is also taking
But does it have teeth?
No. Question is, that's another part of this thing.
Right.
But
let's address this now.
police complaint authority. Okay, now, with all due respects to all this thing over there, what is his actual duty? He has to inquire whether the police has registered or not. How long do you take it? It has stretched on for months together. That one case. You are going to decide as to whether the officer has done his duty or not, and you expect that officer who the complainant comes immediately to the police station and says, register my case. Now, look at this thing. Okay, now that goes on as a trial.
Stretching into months.
I mean, these are not this thing. And finally, the police complaint authority is only a recommendatory thing, right? But here there have been judgment passed, he has to be dismissed. How can you be doing these things? The Constitution, Ryan will be enlightening you very clearly. Who has the right to dismiss or appoint? Is the appointing authority. Who has the right to give a sort of punishment? The appointing authority. If I'm the appointing authority as the DIG for the sub-inspector, you cannot take my rights. But here it is happening, bindas, both sides. So it's in a flux. Right now, things are in a flux.
Right.
Nobody knows. Again, the talk comes about, there are some notorious persons who are here, dealings and everything. Very highly they speak about the Hyderabad police. Has the Hyderabad police gone and tackled these people?
No.
There is something called NCB.
Right.
Have they tackled? Why point only us? No, I'm not justifying
Correct,
if
correct,
they're
correct.
not saying.
Correct, you're putting it
But
in
I'm
perspective,
just
yes,
putting
yes.
perspective. There are also other enforcement agencies there
Sure.
around.
Sure, correct. The NCB also needs to do his job, right? Correct.
See, actually, Goa police is not bad. They are as bad as the other police. And the other police are not good. They are also as bad as the Goa police.
As
The
good
whole
as the Goa police, yes.
police system in India is bad.
Yes.
Understood? But
Cyril goes to the other extreme.
See, I am looking at
Like,
the
forget
holistic
it.
picture.
Yeah, yeah,
I am not
agreed.
interested in Goa police.
Right.
I have already lost hope on them after the 2013 BOSCO case.
Yeah, I'll just come to the case
I'll
first.
respond
I've
to
lost
that.
hope
to that, yes.
because it was such an open and shut case, but
Right.
we failed them. We
Yeah.
failed a small girl. This state has failed a girl. We have not failed the system. We could not give justice to a small school girl. And we can't say that we are a just society, we are a learned or a developed society. You know. But there is one more aspect that we don't, we should study, is the workload that the police are handling day by day. And I look at, the population, because we were discussing and he said we are a small state. We are not a small state. We handle whole year 80 lakh beside our population. But we don't have that many policemen to cater, first of all, to our 16 or 17, and then we don't have to cater to the remaining tourists to come.
No, what you're saying is true. Look, you're having how many functions in this state? Name it.
Uncontrolled.
And everybody's in bandobast. And
What are you?
correct.
I was DIG in the last 2 months. I just didn't have the time to attend to anything else except you have Sunburn Festival. Massive. All the forces you have to.
Why?
I don't know why.
Correct. Yes.
Added to that, then you have pension. There is this thing. Okay. Added to that, you have the casinos also functioning day and night. See, I'm not against all this.
Correct.
Have these things, but where is the
But this requires
infrastructure?
We have to have it,
What
but
he
then we have
highlights,
to provide the infrastructure.
Yeah,
no?
that's what I
Police-
said. The infrastructure.
Infrastructure we should provide. We
what he
cannot.
highlights, without having said so, is in my opinion, you have to segregate law and order and investigation.
Correct.
You have one set of officers doing investigations, and they do just that. And you have another set that will do law and order, including bandobast and all that, and they do just that.
Right.
But if you expect a man to spend the day finding out who committed a particular murder, and then stand on the side of the road and check which cars are going back and forth, and then stand the next day at some place where some VIPs come from Delhi for a function, they're
Correct.
human beings. You
You're
can't
absolutely
expect them to do the
Yeah.
job of 3 men in the time of 1 man.
Yeah, we'll
So
deep dive
the
into
segregation
this.
also needs to
We'll
happen.
get,
Please
still one
note
second. Yeah.
that the police don't have a time limit in 24 hours for work. They work 24 hours.
Right. True.
Which is the biggest violation of human rights of the policemen themselves.
Yeah.
When they themselves are victims
Yeah.
of human rights violation, don't expect.
Yeah. So I'll come back to that
justice
in the next section. We'll get deep dive into each of the points that Ryan and Cyril raised, which are very, very important. Shweta, I'd like to draw your attention to the Marian Bargov case primarily because it stares us in the face, and a lot of the things that we have discussed now have played out almost like a template, where a criminal complaint was launched, it was passed off as a civil dispute, so completely, and the criminal aspect of it was not touched upon. The complaint is still there. I think the victim or the complainant went to the wrote to the SP and wrote to the CM as well. So she has of course taken all the steps, and as things stand, that she's waiting in a hotel room, waiting for justice.
Yeah.
But we'll not go into the civil aspect at all.
Yeah.
We are concerned about the criminal complaint and how it was lodged and what will happen. If you can just elaborate a little bit,
So
since
let's
you're
leave
closely
the
connected to
property
the case. Yeah.
aside, right?
Yes.
Let's leave the property
The
aside.
only thing I'll say, Shweta, without the property, there would not be any criminality.
No,
Yeah, that's correct.
but
Okay, go, go.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
But who it belongs to, she's been staying there since 2009.
Right,
Is
right.
all I know.
Right.
Now it's really muddled up.
Muddled
Okay.
up, yeah.
A week before, I just learned this morning actually. A week before people came into Marianne's house and sort of took it over, she had overheard Panchayat and neighbors talking about the fact that some people had come to look at the field. There are fields behind her house where a road could be built so that this area could be developed. I don't know, with a hotel or whatever, So it's not just a personal case.
Right.
It might just be a larger case,
Right,
really,
right, right.
currently she's in a hotel room till 13th of this month. The case will be heard. Now the case has been going on from 28th. Every day they have been increasing. The bill she got this morning from the security people, because there were 5 security people who were from the other side who were very dangerous. So she asked a friend to hire 2 security people. Now she has a bill of 2,05,000 to pay for that. She's paying a rent. Her clothes, her jewelry, her everything. Imagine, I mean, this is a life, right? 2009 means we have 13 years of life inside that house. And they have just gone and broken it in. So just the whole system of it, for me, it seems like, okay, is this truly Banana Republic? And like Cyril said, yeah, probably we should just say that we are probably ruled by criminals. Then we'll understand how to operate, you know, and it's fine. But to say that we have a justice system and this happens in front of your eyes, I mean, for me, it is the same thing, right? It cannot be happening on our land, this kind of injustice. And speaking about, you rightly said about the Hyderabad police, they do not arrest anyone of meaning from the drug trade. They only arrest small-time dealers, you know, who have a very small role to play. They got into it because they had to fend for their money or whatever was the case. But not the kingpins are having a great time, you know.
Right.
So you're right that, you know, there's no police that is away from the rot.
Shweta, carrying on from where we left off, you were just concluding your points with regard to this Marian Borgo case specifically. And so the thing is, just tell us a little bit about the experience when you all went to the police station and filed the complaint.
So we didn't went to the police station. The police again and again came. So this entire saga lasted for about a week to 10 days, where there were goons which are outside her house. There's a gypsy that is inside, and she cannot get out of a single room.
Right.
And inside that room, there was no electricity. The water connection was cut. So there was someone else who was cooking food outside and delivering, and only that one person was allowed.
Right.
So a couple of times we went and we asked them if we want to go and see our friend. And these people were stopping us and asked us for a court order. So I asked them that, okay, who are you to ask me for a court order? Can I see your ID? And but despite all of that, when I'm saying that there was a real threat, right? We knew looking at them that anything could happen. And then 4 days pass, and in the middle of the night, close to 20-25 people enter the house and break the windshield of her car, and around that area also do other things. She was only in a room, so they must have entered the house also and done other damage to the property. After which, it was only because of the stories that were happening in media that they got really scared, because after a point we would come in the morning and the women who were there would run away seeing us. And they asked Marianne that, okay, we will give you time till February 15th to live here, to pack everything so that you can go out with dignity. It's your choice. But the bargain is that you will not speak to media, which she refused and decided to leave the house. And currently she's lodged in a hotel room. And the problem with this situation is that it's very normal, you know. The case is going to keep getting delayed. Eventually her visa will get over in the month of March or April, and she will go back, and this would be taken over, and it's over. But there is a financial transaction which is available, which has gone from Marianne, and this is a very common thing actually. Either of course, either we say that, okay, fine, there's no property to be bought in Goa by the foreigners, either apartments or houses or companies or investment through loopholes. There are so many loopholes to do that.
Right.
And people who are living here for 25, 35 years, of course they will
know
try
it,
and invest.
They know it all, yes.
You know,
how to do it.
and it's assisted. It's not happening in isolation. It's being assisted with people from India, right? There's companies are formed and they are helped. But a situation like this usually happens to a single woman, I have seen. That where you can very easily sort of use it. But this is not just about taking over this particular house. It seems there are bigger reasons to take over this house. There is some plan to make a road that will go through the paddy field, probably doing more kind of development to this particular property. And her case is one case. There are many cases like this that have happened in Goa, and in the next few years we'll see way more, only because now we have 35 years of people from outside
Right.
residing in Goa, you
Right,
know.
right. Ryan, we want moving on from this particular case specifically. If you could just tell us that in similar such cases, I mean, without getting into this, in similar such cases, and you may have encountered some of these. So, what can be done and what is not being done in this whole grey area between criminal and civil?
First of all, the mere existence of a civil dispute does not necessarily exclude either criminal liability or action in criminal law. The first leg of it is the preventive actions of the police. Amongst other things, well-known section 151, where if someone is about to commit a crime or is doing anything that disturbs the peace, the police can always put him under preventive detention. It happens very often. The exercise of this power is not unknown within Goa, and then of course the person has to get an order of bail from the executive magistrate, and he will have to execute bonds to maintain the peace and good behavior and so on. In circumstances like these, that was one option which could have been employed before things went to the point where you have to register an FIR and take action. Perhaps that was something that was not done. There are other provisions also that that could have been invoked, what we commonly call the chapter cases, where the matter is referred to an executive magistrate. He examines the matter and decides whether any or all of the people involved in a particular occurrence should be asked to give bonds of good behavior for whatever period he or she may deem fit. Things like these were not taken up. Then of course the question of registration of an FIR and consequential investigation, and then of course further action depending on what the investigation turned up as evidence. These things were perhaps all not done. I would repeat that the existence of a civil dispute cannot exclude all of these actions. Just to illustrate, if a builder approaches me and offers to sell me a flat, say for 10 lakhs, I pay him the 10 lakhs and he takes off with it and never even puts up the building. Technically, I can file a suit to recover my 10 lakhs from him with interest and whatever else. But I can also file a complaint alleging that he has cheated me, that he made that representation of a flat only to induce me to part with the money with no intention of ever delivering such a flat to me. And I would in such a case be able to maintain a civil suit and a criminal complaint. And I think this is what people are losing sight of.
Right.
Okay. Cyril, coming back to a subject that you have closely followed and you briefly mentioned and alluded to, it's the whole BOSCO rape case, because that's another area where you feel very strongly about, where you feel that justice has not been done to girl, and somehow the powers that be bent towards the party that may have been the perpetrators of this whole crime. But when you say that, let me also make a point here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think the police officer who was involved there, we feel that she had done a pretty honest, hardworking job, and somewhere it fell down the cracks. In the sense that initially, when the lady police officer was investigating the case, she did it with a lot of sensitivity initially. So what led to it after that? Because it's just a feeling that we got as journalists. But thereafter, of course, ultimately 10 years later, the person has not been caught. So that again is a bigger story than one police officer doing her work diligently.
See, in that case, I have nothing against that police officer who was investigating initially. My whole issue is that police have, in the whole, have not done a scientific job in the whole investigation and timely. That is where. And my sometimes fear is that we talk of criminals and this, but the police sometimes and the system also goes against on caste basis. It was an ST girl, okay, and I have experienced where people have said, "Arey, she may be
ST,
but
justified
these are also
that
our
the caste
people."
would have played a part in Goa for something
in
else?
tackling the crime, in registering the crime under the ST Atrocities Act and all that, and the promptness by which the police should have acted. And the way, as I say, the scientific approach was not there, or systematic approach, because 6 people had seen a person in the school premises.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
When I studied the whole investigation done by the police and then followed by the CBI,
Right.
CBI didn't do much investigation. They took over from the police
Yes, that's right,
investigation.
that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
And they took over from all the statements done by the police. He is now in crime branch, so he will tell me. Okay. I was shocked that the CBI didn't do their own they didn't take their own statement. They relied completely on the police statement. But what I studied, when I studied it, and that is what we presented afterwards when the CBI wanted to close the case, is that the 6 teachers, 5 teachers and the headmistress who had seen the person, they were not shown the sketch of the suspect.
They were not shown the sketch.
No.
Right.
Now,
right.
I as a common person, the citizen, do not understand how the person who had seen and who had made statement that they have seen it were not shown the sketch.
Right.
And you
right.
tell me they're going to show the sketch all over the town, but not to the people who had seen it.
Right.
So I don't understand how. So then you feel, frustrated that our police, and sometimes if you see the new recruits or the old recruits also, with all respect to sir, the quality of policemen being recruited, you don't expect them to give you justice. It's this sort of, when you start packaging the police in such manner, then they are only going to serve the masters and not the
We
citizens.
don't even know who are the masters.
Okay,
That's
let's
the
flip this.
problem.
Yeah, come here, Bosco.
Everyone knows.
Make your point. Yeah.
No,
And we create the masters.
Okay.
We create. When we vote,
Okay, I was coming to you,
we
Bosco,
create the
anyway.
masters
Yes.
of the police.
Okay.
No, it's a very sad thing that this case has not been detected.
Right.
But I'll tell you, Sujay, see, if the police were allowed to investigate it in the initial stage, initial, they give the police some time
That's true.
to come to some, theory to, because it's blind, we do not know the thing. But you get everyone giving you comments, that this is the theory, this is the theory, this is the theory. And I'm telling you, no investigating officer can do this thing. We then go about trying to, negate this theory, this theory, this theory. In the end, you don't get it.
Right.
The initial thing, because I do not know much of the case for the simple reason I was in the north, south was at this thing. But from what we were, the trouble was every media, every known expert is giving you one theory about it. It was a mess from the start. Okay, like Cyril said. As far as Goa Police is concerned, conventional crimes, till date, CBI has never been able to unwind what we had started.
That's true. Including the Scarlet.
Including the Scarlet. And that was, at least Scarlet, I know it to the point, and I had said they will not even be able to change a full stop or comma in that case. They only changed, which I even agree, from 302 to made it 304. That was the thing. Reason being, CBI is able to unwind or come to the conclusion than the rest of the country on the simple reason because over there they botch up the case. There is a cover up of the case. In our state, it has never happened this way. But yes, as I said, it went on the wrong summaries that this has to go, and naturally it went up into a mess. It's a sad thing.
So I would disagree with you on one issue between CBI and Goa Police when you say, what I have understood, what I have studied is that when CBI takes over a case, they have a dedicated person involved in that particular case.
Only thing, Cyril,
Yeah.
CBI is they have expertise
Yes.
in non-conventional crimes. All the economic cases, anti-corruption cases. As far as this conventional crimes of murder, rape, and all, I think they cannot. It will very difficult to beat the local police because we do this
Day in and out.
day in, day out,
From my
and
experience.
they take over after everything is already done.
From my experience, I will agree with Mr. George that when it comes to these conventional crimes, the CBI always falls short.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
in
both of you are
comparison-
involved in the Scarlet killing case deeply.
in
so-
comparison to what the local police do.
Yeah.
The CBI is very skilled in things like economic crime.
Yes. anti-corruption.
Corruption. And those kind of
And
offenses.
because over there it's all documentation, and they go by the book. They will not take when you come to the police station, you say that person has assaulted me. Our fellow, if he is there, he's too enthusiastic, he'll go and pick him up. The CBI will say, let us get a warrant.
No,
Let
the
us go
other
to the
problem
court.
is the CBI will have a dedicated officer
Yeah.
sitting in Bombay or Delhi who comes down twice a
Twice,
month, 2 days a month.
Right.
The Goa police will have an officer who's here every day.
Every day.
Right.
So obviously he can deal with it.
Ryan, that
On
Goa
the
police
moment.
fellow does not have time for that crime
Yeah,
to
yeah.
resolve
Okay.
that crime.
No, what I'm
That's
saying
why
is,
that is specific.
no,
The officer
what
was
I'm saying is only
investigating
thing
that
as
BOSCO
far
case,
as
yeah.
convention and they will go on our theories only. What you said is true. They are not out. Only thing, they'll have much better infrastructure, much better forensics, as he has said. They'll have these things, expertise. They'll have a PP, dedicated PP to be all around them. I mean, these things are
So
there.
my question is, if they can have that, why can't we?
Okay, that's exactly what we'll discuss in this segment. We're running
Because
Why
they take
can't
one
we-
case
Once
at
again,
a
sir,
time.
we'll address this right now as we close. We've got about 8 minutes left to the show. Bosco, we'll in fact pick up some threads from what CYRIL and you have just said in the concluding segment. See, let's flip the whole thing now in the sense that let us understand that there are elements in the police and many elements who are dedicated people with a attitude towards giving service. Let's accept that class exists. Okay, and obviously they are challenged by the system, by the milieu, mahal as they say in Hindi, and are completely consumed by the system or the lack of it, which prevents them from exercising their duty. So the issue is that fundamental to this, needs to be this whole division between the executive controlling the police. So in the sense that what do you feel should be the systematic changes to ensure that that these fundamentals need a little bit of tweaking, because unless the fundamentals change, these problems will continue irrespective of whether you have a good officer or a bad officer. Okay, so if you could just outline in this concluding segment as to what do we do to ensure that the police doesn't bend towards the powerful.
Today I can afford to say a little bit more.
Yes.
Like he rightly said about training.
Right.
Isn't it an irony? All IPS officers get the best training, but they never investigate a single case.
Yeah.
Come on now, if this is going, you're going to start with this. I'm not saying the others are untrained. I'm just saying the best trainings are given to people. I'm fortunate to have got into IPS. We get the best training, but we don't investigate. We call, this is the worst thing that can ever happen, supervisory officers. I don't know why you require 1 level, 2 level, 3 levels of supervising. It should be the IO and his immediate superior. That's it. But here it goes to every level. Okay. And in CBI they have the person who investigates the cases is a gazetted officer, and then he has the number of what you call the subsidiary investigators.
Right.
I mean, that needs to be done. As it has to start at least in the crime branch, if not all the police stations,
Right.
but at least crime branch and the main police stations of Goa, where you need this type of this thing.
Right.
Okay, so that would address the training part of it. Second part is that all our efforts as far as investigation, it has to be he says political I will say separating of investigation from
Law and order.
Law and order.
Yes.
Let's put it, I will put it in a different way. In law and order and all these things, you require politicians. Because what happens, tackling sometime, there is a political party that comes up with morcha or whatever this thing. You require an equal this thing to handle and tackle the thing, because it is a political thing, it requires politics. But when it is a case has to be investigated, there should be no other reporting this thing.
Right.
So you have this thing that after this, once the FIR is registered, that person.
So how
should
do you
be
ensure that? That can only be ensured if the powers of writing a SCR and
and the superintendence
transfers,
of the police doesn't go to the executive.
No, but the point is, how do you make changes? There has to be a constitutional change to this.
Yes, absolutely.
This needs
as
a
far
constitutional
as
amendment.
investigations
Yeah.
are concerned,
Yeah.
it requires this thing that there cannot be any political this thing. That's why I say the superintendents of the police should be bifurcated as far as investigation is concerned, and otherwise, if it is with the executive, it will always.
Bosco,
be
one
there.
more thing. There was always this talk of this police bill. Now, my point is, do we really know or are aware of what the police bill would be to change this basic problem?
Sujay, we did a lot. As a police officer, we wanted the police bill. We did even the police manual. Somehow it has got stuck up somewhere in the legislature. I don't know.
Okay. Shweta,
Some have apprehensions that police will be made too powerful or this thing. But I think you require test it. Curtail it afterwards. But don't keep it in abeyance
Is
for
it
the
being tested right now in Hyderabad? A part of privatization and taking care of.
See, this was actually, if you all said and done, Mr. Pratap Singh Rane, who initially brought out that bill, which said auxiliary police.
Right.
I mean, these things, all this not like entertainments and all, you have an auxiliary. Today we are doing all these things.
you're doing only auxiliary.
Yeah,
actually.
only auxiliary.
Correct. Shweta, a little bit on what you feel should be the basic changes, but I think the premise that we go by is that the politician will never cede power, and control over the police is a very big aspect of their power.
Yeah, I think police anywhere is with the powerful. It's not special to Goa. But the pace of change in Goa, I don't think everybody is really registering it, what's happening. And I think it really there needs to be, like back in the day, the kind of revolutionary committees that existed, that needs to come back. People really need to think that what is going to happen, and a lot will need to be changed. Otherwise, next 5 to 6 years, I think we all will be having this conversation rather too often.
Right.
I'm seeing this, the rate of crime go up drastically. Incidentally, registration of crimes is not exactly a bad thing. It basically means that people are coming out and registering it and
Right.
feeling more confident
Right.
that they can go to the law and order authorities. So that's not a bad thing. The problem in Goa remains the conviction rate. The thing is that a lot of criminals who would get arrested anywhere else would come here, do a petty crime, go into jail for a month, get a bail and chill. So this kind of thing, that conviction rate really needs to go up.
Right.
So it's going to be between police and the law authorities that they'll have to work.
Right.
I'll just
Bosco.
this thing.
Sure.
It's because Shweta brought up because of regarding ladies. Okay, regarding this thing. Invariably, first of all, we have a conscious decision has been taken because of this thing that you don't arrest the lady. Okay. Now you arrest the Lals and all those people over there. The ladies go back to their state or wherever there is thing. When the time comes in the trial, nobody comes. That is one
You're talking
part.
of
But
trafficking
you're
cases.
talking about prostitution, right? Prostitution is different and human trafficking is different, right? And human trafficking remains one of the largest in Goa. So that's a real criminal case.
Again, like you said, regarding human trafficking, you mean mostly of the migrants.
Yeah, migrants.
It is basically migrants.
Yes,
It's
yes.
basically migrant. Again, you get the children, you rescue them, you send them. We have it's a challenge keeping them even in Bal Bhavan and all these things. And then afterwards, it goes to the board that finally decides.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, there is no incentive to actually come back and run with,
Right.
go to the law and bother about the court and everything. They say, "ठीक है, हम लोग हो गया, we'll go back
Right.
home." And that's it. So, I mean, these are actual challenges because I know of the PPs and all. They have put in a lot of efforts as far as trying to get these.
Get all this correct. Okay, Cyril, your concluding remarks and
No,
suggestions.
see, my one, see, I am biggest victim of police atrocities in Goa because I'm on it. I see sometimes I'm also put behind bars because we are irritants for them. Understood? People who keep an eye on the police are always the biggest irritants because they can't face us. No, that's the problem. Police are caged parrots, be they in Goa or anywhere else. Okay. I would want these caged parrots to be brought out. The cages should. Sir has diplomatically put it up to superintendents that he is demanding independence from superintendents. He is not demanding from politicians. I want them to be independent from superintendents, from the executive as well as the politicians, more so from the politicians. If that can happen, then justice will prevail at every step, everywhere. Every citizen will get justice. But that is not happening. But this is what
I'm starting with the first step. Give us give us that authority up from about superintendent. There is not real this thing. It is pressure is down. At least give them that liberty.
Okay.
But politicians should should be free from
that is
them
ideal.
also. The biggest, and we should aim at it. You know,
We're running out of time, so I will give Ryan the
I will echo
stage to conclude.
Mr.
Yes.
George.
yes.
Insulate the police from the political class in every aspect of service, starting with recruitment up to the day they retire. ACRs, transfers, promotions, everything. Have some sort of a commission that will regulate that, have senior police officials on that commission.
Absolutely.
Let them conduct their own internal administration, including down to writing ACRs. Secondly, better training in investigative methods, but also to sensitize them that protect and serve should be their motto. Thirdly, much higher use of technology. And fourthly, more humane working conditions, which means they have reasonable working hours and they can be more efficient. Obviously, if they are doing 3 days work in 1 day, efficiency is going to drop. That also needs to be addressed.
Okay, I'll end on a very simple note, because from the time we were children, we always knew that if any wrong was committed, we could always go to the police station. The uniformed police force was always seen as a source of strength and protection. And if everything else failed, we knew that the police station would give us justice. Maybe that feeling is still there in a lot of people, because you invariably end up doing that. You reach out for the phone to call the nearest police station. You go there with a lot of hope. And one wouldn't say that, the entire force is corrupt or inefficient and so on and so forth. But this discussion has brought out some harsh realities and some real challenges. I think the devil is in the detail. The problem here is that we need a systematic change to end this pandemic, as it were. The police, while one admits that they may have crossed over to the other line and mingled with forces of power, but not everybody. The issue is it's not a system problem as such. It's become a systematic problem primarily because of the fact that certain fundamental changes are being ignored or resisted by the powers that be. But at the core of it all, you need an honest policeman to change society and make it function in the manner that it should. And when the public and the common man is so much at pain and the police is seen as an enemy of the people, then I don't think democracy or a humane society can function in the manner that it was envisaged. I thank all my panelists for giving so much of input and insight. I'm not sure whether this will lead to solutions or not, but it's at least got us thinking as to what the way forward is, and that I think is a good enough start. Thank you very much for being with us and giving your insights. Thank you.